Hello. All right, Saturday, January 8th. Uh, got to do a lot of work. Got to drive a lot of days coming up. So this might be maybe I'll do a video or two on the road. We'll never you know, we'll see. Anyway, there has been a few things that I wanted to talk about, and one of them is a lot of people I know, they shake their heads and they say, how the hell can you eat that much meat? And how can you eat it all the time? And how can, isn't it bad for you? Doesn't it cause cancer? And, these are valid questions. And I want to give you I want to talk about that today because, my mom was suffering from anemia and she reversed it. She had, I put her on a diet of lots of red meat, lots of liver, and she got rid of it fast. I mean, she was not anemic in I think it was less than 6 weeks, so she blasted through it. And we found she was feeling, she had all the symptoms of anemia. She had, she was brain fog, fatigued, no energy, gasping for breath. A lot of things are at play there, and a lot of times we don't look at the whole picture. You don't look at your digestion, your absorption of B vitamins to support your red blood cells. There's a lot of things at play, and could come down to electrolytes, your copper balance, but we're not going to get too sciencey. We're going to keep it mainstream. And what we did is we just gave, basically, in a nutshell, I made my mom eat B vitamins through nutritional yeast and liver. Made her eat red meat till she was so sick of it she wanted to kill me. But we reversed it. And sure enough, about a year later, she took her foot off the gas pedal as far as her diet and nutrition. She's also an epileptic, and she's on medication, so that might have something to do with the processing of what or how she digest food. But a year later, we got the blood test back, and even though she wasn't feeling the symptoms of the anemia, it was her iron and her ferritin and everything was in an anemic range. So it was just a matter of time. Luckily, we caught it this time, and sure enough, we blasted her with a bunch of liver and red meat, and I force fed her, spooning ground beef down her poor little face. And with her next blood test 3 weeks later, she's better. She's still in the danger zone, but improved. So it's something that is very. In that situation, it was definitely the difference. I mean, you can eat as much spinach as you want. I mean, there's two kinds of iron. There's heme iron, which is like meat iron, and then there's non-heme iron, which is all the iron that's fortified in grains and found in the plant world. It's not the same thing, and your body has to break it down and do some things to it to make you use it. So there's all sorts of complications with iron. Iron is a whole, I always say this, but it's another talk. Like, we can get into it, and it's fascinating what I've learned just through my mom's anemia. And there's no just iron pills. Like, you can't just take iron and then on your way. Maybe in the long run it might help, but you need to fix these symptoms. You need to fix yourself, and quite quickly, because it's devastating. I watched my mom. I was worried. She was worried. She thought she was going to have an oxygen tank and not be able to breathe. She could take 10 steps and sit down. She had to take a rest. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about the not only the importance of red meat, but there's some myths and some things like, a lot of people ask, like, how do you do it? You're going to get colon cancer. And, to be honest, to be brutally honest, it's possible. Would I personally think that would be the reason I got colon cancer? I would argue no, because there's a lot of things that we don't get. And it goes back to, like, I'm going to need you're going to have to take a step back and keep an open mind here, because I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on how I think and why I chose to start eating this way. Very meat-based. I don't think carnivore's for everybody. I don't think you have to eat just meat. I think it depends on what you want to accomplish with your health and your goals, and if you're suffering from something. I think it's all very individual. But I chose, since I've been studying nutrition, I wanted to do certain protocols to test it out so I could relate. And the more I learned about vegetarianism and veganism, which I was gonna try, to be honest with you, I learned about what nutrients were, how we get them, and how vital they are to our health. And when you look at, when you take a step back and you look at all the nutrients you need, there's a lot of things that come from the animal kingdom that you can't deny, and you can try and supplement or replace if you are taking the plant based option. And I'm not talking about ethics. I understand everybody's got a heart and it's different for everybody. This is not about ethics. This is not about politics. This is not my ideology. This is just about nutrition, essential nutrients that we need to live, and you can get them easier from animals. And sure, there's arguments, and there's valid points on both sides, but I mean, this is from my side and my take, and this is why I've chosen to base my diet around nutrient dense animal foods, meats and organs. And this is kind of why. So I started studying this stuff, and I've always been sort of, I wouldn't call myself a meathead, but I mean, I love steak. I love beef. I've always been a steak and or meat and potatoes kind of guy. But I've gone on my diet kicks before in the past, and I would eat 6 meals a day, protein shakes, low glycemic index carbs, and brown rice, whole grains, just everything that you're supposed to do. And I gained some muscle. I was pretty strong, but I never. I guess now looking back and feeling so good and being so, having this clarity, I've never felt this good before. So there was definitely something lacking. And I was eating meat, and I was eating a lot of salads. I was eating a lot of oil. So there was a lot of things that were similar, but what were the difference? What were the mitigating factors? Why now am I feeling so good, so lean, and like in the best physical shape of my life with minimal training? So there's got to be an X factor. And so I started studying nutrition, got really into it. I kind of went down the keto train. Started off with a really bad dirty keto, like didn't understand what was going on, and then I figured out about hormones and why you're doing it, and how you're actually metabolizing fat, how it works, and then how energy metabolizes, and learning certain things along the way. I started listening to people. I went to a couple conferences about keto conferences, low carb conferences. They're everywhere. Low Carb USA, Low Carb All Stars Down Under. Dr. Paul Mason is has a fantastic channel, Low Carb Down Under. If you ever just look great, lots of good, insightful stuff. So anyway, I started listening to these lectures, and how you could reverse type 2 diabetes, which I was like, what? Like how, what is it? Doesn't, but it started to all click. It started to all come in to say that, I think there's something really big here. And, whether it's low carb or not, there is a big thing about nutrition. Now, we are so quick to get prescriptions and pills, and where do you think these medications come from? Like just throwing these thoughts. This is kind of like a thought experiment, because medications are molecules, and they have cause and effect and side effects. Well, those molecules, they get derived a lot of times from nature. They're not all just made in like magic. So we take one molecule, and then they find out some things that it does, and then they branch off and they make analogs and different things. They can make it synthetically and blah blah blah. But the most important thing is those molecules, when you take a drug, there are side effects. Now, wouldn't it be naive, and I'm just throwing it out there, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, I'm just trying to put sense into this whole craziness. Wouldn't it make sense, when you eat these molecules, depending on what they are, not to mention in concert with other potential affecting molecules, you might have a bad side effect, right? And what are the side effects? We don't know. Maybe a rash, maybe some congestion, some inflammation. Maybe these are just side effects of our diet, and that's all I'm saying. Maybe, So whether you want to argue anti-inflammatories, or you can take Advil all you want, but I would like to think that if you didn't have inflammation, you wouldn't need an anti-inflammatory. So something's causing the inflammation, and that Advil is just easing the symptom. Okay, so now we're thinking this. Now we're thinking kind of root cause stuff. So we'll take it a step further. Now, with all the hyper palatable processed foods that are out there, we have stuff that we have not even begun to understand. Now, just because the FDA or somebody says it's safe, they don't know how on what stretch it's safe. They have safety limits. So if you just come under that limit, and there's trickery, there's marketing. You can really skew the facts. Like you look at this low fat craze that we've been having since the 70s and 80s, or pretty much the 80s. You can be 95% fat free, but that can still be 50% of your calories if you look at it from a different way. I mean, fat has 9 calories per gram, carbs and protein have 4. So you can take you see what I'm saying? You can start to get lost here. So just because something says something doesn't mean it is, okay? Now, if these things could affect us negatively, maybe if we cut it all out, got back to basics, we might start feeling better in certain ways, and things might start happening that would have never happened before. That they're just out of the blue. So okay, now when we're talking speaking like that, I started thinking, what would be the most nutritious diet for me? Well, I was thinking about being vegetarian, trying it to see how I did. But then I learned about amino acids and the full spectrum of amino acids and how complete they are in the animal world. And if you're dealing with vegetarianism or veganism, you're gonna have to work a lot harder to get the full amino acid spectrum. So that was interesting. And then there was the fat thing, and through the low carb avenue, I was brought to the attention. I found out about this journalist. Her name is Nina Teicholz, and she's an investigative journalist that was covering a story for the New York Times, and she fell upon this thing, and she questioned dietary fat and cholesterol, and it came down to an investigative report on the history of how we got to this place, being so scared of cholesterol and so scared of animal fat and vilifying beef. Well, there's a history, and it's amazing. Once this world gets opened, you can't really unlearn it. Anyway, there's a guy, his name's Ansel Keys, and he developed a heart hypothesis, the heart health hypothesis, basically saying, saturated fat is bad, cut down your red meat. And this all went crazy when Eisenhower had a heart attack, and that sort of triggered the war against heart disease. So, anytime there's a war against something, we get force-fed stuff that, I start to realize now where, maybe there's some truth there. Yeah, everything starts off with good intention, but then where do we get caught up? Where does it stop? And so I started thinking. I started listening to these people that were speaking from a more ancestral approach, from the theory of evolution and natural selection. And when you actually stop the noise and start to think a little bit critically, my health is important to me. Am I just going to start doing things that I've been doing for the last 15 years, 20 years, expecting something different? Or are my eyes open and let me try? So anyway, long story short, for now, I fell on these animal-based. I mean, a lot of the people in the low-carb space base around moderate amounts of protein, but they're all saying how nutritious red meat is. And I was questioning. I'm like, okay, I understand it's probably good for you, but how good for you, I don't know. But then I started to take a deep dive into it, and then all of a sudden, this crazy thing I found was the carnivore diet, and how people were reversing autoimmune issues and doing phenomenal, amazing, getting results that would blow your mind. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I remember a time when a friend of mine, we were, sort of training partner-ish, and he's like, if we want to get results, all we gotta do is eat beef and eggs. And I looked at him like he was nuts. I looked at him like he was crazy, and I was like, I am not eating vegetables. There's not a chance. I need this. Like, there's no way. I was 10 years older than him, and I was like, this is not a good idea. Cut to a few years later, here I am, started out with beef and eggs, and I have never felt better, which is, and kind of pseudo continued it. So I'm now basing my diet around animal meat and organs. So I get nutrition. And I just wanted to do a little talk because everybody asks me about this. They're like, how can you do that? That's so bad for you. And I will argue, and I'm gonna throw a couple things out there. Okay, so now I wrote down some stats just to show you. So if I eat just meat, all right, to give you a reference, about 3 ounces of meat contains about 20 to 25 grams of protein, okay? So that's about a protein shake's worth, right? Now, I would say I would eat probably about 24 ounces of meat a day, okay? And now that is 160 to 200 grams of protein. Now, I'm 185 pounds, approximately 1 gram of protein, give or take. That's about right in my range. So I'm about 1.5 pounds of beef just to get my protein requirements, which is good, right? Now, you'd think that would be like astronomically high, and that's only 1,700 calories. So if you're looking at your body mass index, I'm at a basal metabolic rate probably close to 3,000. So that's actually a low fat diet, really. That would be, I would have to up that to about 2.5 pounds. Now I supplement, I eat eggs, or not supplement, but I eat eggs and I eat organs. So I get that calorie level up well over 2,000 calories a day. So, I get there with olives and fat. Now, just to give you an example, 1 tablespoon of fat, so 1 tablespoon about, we'll say olive oil, is about 120 calories, okay? So 3 ounces of beef is 213 calories. So that's like a burger patty, all right? So to give a reference, 1 donut is 275 calories. So this can get real bad. Like, once you're doing the carb fat thing together, this gets tipped over pretty quick. But just eating meat alone, and I mean, it's very marginal as far as the protein through all different meats. I mean, whether you're going to eat fish, it's a little higher in fat, but it's you eat chicken, it's a little bit higher in protein, not as much, maybe not as nutrient dense. But you get the idea. Red meat is the issue where people have like, how can you eat steak a day? But this is why. Okay, the micronutrients. We got B3, B12, B6, zinc, iron, which is heme iron, is the good iron, potassium, phosphorus, selenium. So that's a pretty good rounded thing. There's a few holes in the B vitamin side of things, which I compensate when I eat liver, and I have nutritional yeast every once in a while. So that's your full spectrum of B vitamins at a lot more percentage than the recommended daily allowance. And now we want to get into some stuff that's a little bit more that you get with meat that we need, that we underestimate. And there's a lot of people that don't eat red meat that have to supplement this stuff, or they supplement this stuff and they don't know why. So one is L-carnitine. It helps you convert fat into energy. Now, fat, this is another thing. Red meat in nature, it's almost a perfect ratio. It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio, depending on the cut, depending on the part, depending on the animal. But, protein and fat come together in nature. This was natural. This is way back in the day. We are fat and protein. We are not sugar. There's 4 grams of sugar in us, and our body will produce the sugar it needs. But fat and protein come in nature, and it comes in its own package. That package is beautifully put together in a thing called beef. I mean, lamb, venison, anything with a ruminant red meat is good. Okay, so that's the L-carnitine, or the carnitine amino acid. This is it's good for fat. Now, another thing that I wanted to just sort of put out there is, imagine, we evolved from somewhere. We became the apex predator somehow. And I say apex predator. We are top of the food chain. Now, we're not top of the food chain consuming broccoli. We were top of the food chain because we got badass. We developed tools. We developed ways to cook and bring nutrients out. We've developed ways to find it in the plant world, to fall back on nutrition, to get nutrients from that if we couldn't get meat. But if you're looking from an anthropology side of things, if you're looking from an evolutionary way, we evolved eating meat. Now, I'm going to ask this question that I want you to think about this, because this is what, our bodies aren't stupid. Our bodies are way smarter than we think we are. And, Mother Nature and the Lord above, they had a plan. Okay, and there's some nature stuff involved here. How could it be possible to thrive for thousands, if not millions of years, develop into this the biggest brain and the top of the food chain, eating this stuff, and then all of a sudden, in the last 400 years since we've discovered diseases of civilization, is it now bad for us? Do you think it might be the other stuff that we eat it with? You know, it could be. We don't study just meat. You take an epidemiology food survey. You're eating a burger with a bun, fries, a Coke. Most people that eat steak are bigger. They drink a lot of wine. They smoke. You know, you got to take these things into consideration. That it's quite often not just the meat. Okay, and I know you're like people will debate me and or they'll argue with me, but it's not like science has not proven that you can't just eat meat. But I would say that evolving our whole history of our species, eating something that now kills us. Maybe it's something that we do to that food, because there used to be a shit ton of ruminant animals roaming the world. We've hunted them to extinction. You know, the megafauna and the buffalo. So you know now the cows. There's not any more cows, arguably, than there was 100 years ago. So it's not their fault, and I believe it's nutritious. But I think maybe that the way we're raising the cattle there might be an argument there to how nutritious it is. But ancestrally speaking and evolutionary speaking, red meat is good for you. It has to be, right? It has to be, because we hunted and we killed things and we got smarter for it. We learned how to cook and extract nutrients from the bones and marrow. These things, chicken soup is good for you. Like their grandma knew that, right? So, we're talking red meat today, but I mean meat in general, there's a reason why all of our grandparents and our great grandparents, they believed in hearty things and very stews and broths and soups, and every culture has an ethnical soup or stew or way of extracting those nutrients. So it's got to be good for us. That's all I'm saying. Now, another thing that we're going to talk about is creatine, which we hear it all over the bodybuilding world or at the gym world, and they use it for strength. But yes, it is. But it increases the body's ability to produce energy in the cells. So, and that's in meat. That's in red meat. And that's a good thing. You need it, right? Also, carnosine, which it helps in the development and proper function of muscles and organs. So these things are intricately designed to help our vital functions, right? Another thing is choline, and it's a precursor to acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, which is very important. Now, there's going to be arguments about the attachment to choline and TMAO, which we're not going to get into that because it's a little bit sciencey, but that's an argument that vegans have, that it increases TMAO, and TMAO is like a trimethylene nitrous oxide thing that's we don't care. We're right for this thing. But choline is very good. It's found in eggs too. It's a neurotransmitter, and it helps cognitive function. It helps you think. So maybe if you just ate some eggs and ate some beef, all those things, the brain fog might go away. You never know. Like, that's what I'm saying, right? Taurine's another one. It helps for muscle function, cardio development, and your nervous system. So these things are there, and they, if you dissect them and you take them out, yeah, you can supplement with these things. But we've talked about this before in the food matrix. Nature has designed this perfect package of good things in this food, and it's very overlooked. And it's just, if you're gonna just disavow it because it causes cancer, there's a lot of things out there that cause cancer, and we don't really know what exactly it is. Every body is different. So just basing too much red meat causes cancer, I would say you got to look at other things in your life that's going to be thing. And if you're eating meat in with lots of fruits and vegetables, and just including it in your diet at some point, like, it's good for you. It's a superfood. That's the definition of a superfood, if there is a definition of a superfood, because this is all bioavailable, healthy fats, healthy vitamins and minerals, heme iron, like the list goes on. So they have arguments about how you cook it and the charring, but that can get mitigated with different herbs and different, we're not going to get into that because yes, it's possible. And acrylamides and all these things, but we're just getting down to, let alone meat, stock, meat, bone broth, meat, steak. Now, there's something called glutathione, which is your master antioxidant. So you're eating all these oranges, you're eating all these vegetables to get all these antioxidants, but your master antioxidant is produced by you, and it's called glutathione. And you need the proper glycine to methionine, which are two amino acids. One's in a lot of meat muscle, and one's in a lot of connective tissue and collagen. So collagen's been around, been pretty big on the popularity scale lately, but there's a reason, because the gelatinous connective tissue that we kind of discard, well, that's got glycine, and that's good to balance the methionine. You need a little bit of glycine and a lot of methionine, so the muscle meat and the connective tissue and marrow and all that stuff put together create glutathione. It makes your body bulletproof. So that's another argument there, and you can't just take these things as supplements. I don't know if they're the same valid. And now, if you want to go down the amino acid spectrum, which we can talk about this too, but leucine is the trigger. You need the right amount of leucine, the amino acid leucine, which lets all the other amino acids join, combine, and do their magic. So it's in meat. So that's why I eat meat, and that's why I think it's a good idea to include red meat in your diet. I don't believe everybody should be getting all their calories from red meat. I don't think you have to. But, if you are suffering, it might be worth a try. There's anecdotal evidence out there, hundreds, thousands of people that are resolving issues. There's just one Harvard study that's done. It is an epidemiology survey study. But man, the numbers are amazing. You don't get those numbers very often in a correlative study. Just off the charts, all the health markers gone up, and these are people that are 85% red meat, about 10% of them were eating fruits and vegetables, but predominantly carnivore. But I think if you wanted to try it, it's worth a try for a reason. Do I think you need to? Probably not. But I think everybody should include red meat, and I think they should include it a lot more than they're eating. And I think they should get it from as good of a source as possible, as natural as possible, as organic, pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished. Yes, it's expensive, a little bit more expensive, but that's another side note. I don't waste a thing in my fridge. I don't buy condiments anymore because there's a bunch of soybean oil and cottonseed oil and stuff, random vegetable oils in these dressings and condiments that I don't eat. I don't need to. I need salt, and I use garlic, and I eat onions from time to time. And I have sauerkraut, and then I have, just minor stuff, but I eat all my cheese. Any vegetable I buy, I eat right away. I don't waste any food. So that argument gets pretty much thrown out the window when my grocery bill, I consume the whole thing. How many times you go grocery shopping and you have a fridge full of stuff? There's stuff that gets thrown away. There's stuff that sits in the cupboard for ages. That doesn't happen to me. I eat, I get 2 dozen eggs, and that lasts me about 7-8 days. Now, maybe a little more, 4 eggs a day-ish, right? So I don't waste anything. And so the money is now, it shifts. The goalposts have moved. I don't buy crap, and I don't waste anything. So everything I buy, I consume. And it's pretty amazing. Maybe I'll do a budget, and I'll show you. I'll demonstrate how it is. So that's another reason for the way I'm eating is a bonus. But you should include red meat, and you should include, it's got valuable nutrition, and don't be fooled. It's possible. There's no study that's proven it causes colon cancer. And if you're worried about it, check this out. You want to go on the ultimate low-calorie diet? Eat meat and as much fiber as you want. So any dark green leafy vegetable, any vegetable whatsoever is not even counted. Just eat as much as you can. There you go. You got a high fiber, and then you get the nutrient density from meat. And I would urge you to try organs because they're fantastically nutrient dense. So just these things are important. And people ask a lot of questions. And just getting back to the calorie side. To give you a reference, I read a book called The Protein Energy Diet by Dr. Ted Naiman. I'll put a link down below for it. It basically says it's about the human's need for protein and how we'll eat until we get our own protein. Now, if you want to look at that, I just figured this out. This is energy density and satiety, okay? We eat an average about 4 pounds of food a day, okay? So that's an average human, 4 pounds of food. Now, 4 pounds of food, looking at from this context, is 1 pound of smoked salmon, 9 egg omelet, which is 550 calories, 1 pound of boiled potatoes, which is 300 calories, 1 pound of Greek yogurt, which is 250 calories. The pound of smoked salmon was 500 calories. That's 1,600 calories. 4 pounds of food, 1,600 calories. Now, you mean to tell me you can't go on a low-calorie diet? Like, what? Eat less, move more. I mean, right there, you just ate 4 pounds of food and 1,600 calories. Now, the equivalent to that would be 0.8 pounds of donuts. So you're eating about 4 or 5 donuts. That's 1,600 calories. Half a pound of potato chips is roughly 1,600 calories. You see what I'm saying? This is how fast it gets there. So if you just eat nutrient dense, calorically sound, specifically appropriate meat and protein is low cal. You know, you add that, like I said, a pound and a half of beef is roughly 1,700 calories. That's a lot of meat, man. So what I'm going to leave you with is a little vision. If you took the biggest bag of potato chips or a case of beer or a case of Coke, you could crush them. I know we can, because I can do it too. A big bag of Doritos is lunch, no problem. Now you imagine the biggest hunk of prime rib you can, about, a chunk this big, which would probably be about 2 pounds, 3 pounds of prime rib. Would you eat it all? I don't think you could. Why? There's something there. Something's going to tell you to stop. But yet, that big bag of Doritos, you could probably have 2, eat a large pizza, crush 13 cans of Coke, all these empty calories. So that's what I'm saying, I eat meat because I believe it is nutritious. It's nutrient dense. It's bioavailable. We digest it all. We get the good nutrients from it very easily. It's a great protein-fat ratio. It's species specifically appropriate. It's evolutionarily appropriate. It's ancestrally appropriate. And I'm making an argument for it. And I think it should be part of everybody's diet if you can do it. And I mean, if you take in consideration ethically raised, regenerative agriculture, grass-fed, grass-finished, local beef from a rancher or farmer, that's a great positive. So, and I know there's arguments about climate change and cows cause it. Listen, the animals have been here for a long time. They were here longer than us. All these ruminant animals that we've hunted to extinction were here before we had climate problems. Just throwing it out there. So before everybody jumps down cows' throat for causing our problems, I mean, I would argue to say that they're pretty much man-made if you can go that way. But we're not going to go politics. We're not going to get into that stuff. I just want you to be healthy. And, don't be afraid to try new things. And don't be afraid to, you might not agree with me. This is my opinion. I don't push it on anybody. I'm just trying to show you the sides. I feel better. I feel great. And this is the way I do it. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'll probably see you on the road as I'm driving. Maybe do a couple of little quick bursts about how I'm eating on the road. Maybe show you some pictures. It's challenging, right? I can't just stop off and go to, get a Burger King. It's not the way I roll these days. So I have to plan ahead, and it's a little bit of work. But, I made 2 full chickens, and I made a meatloaf, and I'm bringing my cheese and my bone broth and my olives. And, I've got enough food for about 3 or 4 days. So, and if I have to eat it cold, I can do it. And that's that. So, yeah, I hope you learned some things, and I want you to be better. And don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to question what's already been there. I'm gonna put some links down for Dr. Ted Naiman's protein energy diet, and I'm gonna put a fantastic case for beef. So if you want to hear the science behind it, these 2 guys are fantastic. And it's Ivor Cummins and Paul Saladino, and these are front runners in promoting healthy meat eating. And another thing that I wanted to say is when someone is desperate or when someone has nothing to gain, those are the people that I like to listen to, because you know what? Why? Why would they be speaking like this? So those people, when they get brought into something by accident and they can't let it go, that's striking to me. So all these people that find these things about nutrition that aren't nutritionists, doctors, or in the health space, but get drawn to it, and then they get almost to a fanatical level trying to figure out these things. And they're very smart people, engineers, journalists, academics. I tend to listen to what they have to say, and that's what makes me kind of curious. Anyway, I hope you guys take care of yourselves, and especially right now, there's a lot of good things out there that you just have to get through the weeds. And I hope this helps. And let me know if I can help you. I've come across this info, and I've studied myself, and I've studied nutrition, and I understand these mechanisms, and I understand there's a lot of debate, and there's a lot of gray, and there's a lot of wiggle room to work. Even though that I have a certain way of doing things, it might not be the way for you, but if I can help, I will. All you gotta do, just ask. All right, take care, stay strong.